What's up, people? One Nut Punch here. Take a look at Primateria I picked up today, January 8th, 2024. And I want to take a look at it because I played the demo for about maybe a couple hours, and then I put another 3 hours into the actual main game. But I want to talk about the combat mechanics and my entire experience of the 2.5 hours I put into the game when I first bought it after messing around with the demo, in which if anybody wants to try out right now, it's currently on their store page to have people mess with it. That being said, getting into the actual main game, this is the roguelike or roguelite type of element to where you're picking a different pathway, where there's a couple of different events. One is like the Primateria or like realm they call it the death play, which is made by some guy named Baru, and he looks like a weird like plague doctor jester. And when you get into the actual combat of the game, there's these 5 slots on the ground on each side where you can summon creatures. You don't necessarily have mana to use in summoning the creatures. What you do instead is that you have your cost level 1, 2, 3, all the way up to maybe like 7, and you place them on the field, and you can fuse them together to summon more powerful creatures, similar to Yu-Gi-Oh! To where you had like level 4 and under star level creatures that you can normally summon unless they had a special effect. Similar in the same vein, except you don't really sacrifice in order to summon new characters, you're fusing them together to bring something more powerful out. Not to mention, every single time you win combat or you defeat a guardian, you're able to select one of 3 cards that would pop up to increase your deck, because whenever you get into a combat or match, you will try to use all your cards up before you lose the game or win it. Because if you do lose all your cards, they don't really come back. And sometimes if you face against opponents that have like maybe 10 or maybe 5 different cards, it'll say they can't do any movement or they have no more creatures, and the game's just automatically over and you win anyway. The other thing I wanted to mention about that was that they have these weird type of events to where you're either going through like a trial or some type of defense, and you have the enemy unit or the enemy like NPC attacking you, but you can't attack them back. And that is something that goes through 3 turns, and if you survive it, not losing a character or taking a bunch of damage, then you pass on and you get some reward or trinket, whatever they were talking about earlier. You do have your supports too on the bottom right side of the screen. The support items will be different in depending upon whatever you get. For example, you'll have potions that allow you to take your damage deck or your damage pile, which would be your cards that were killed off by the enemy player or NPC, whether it be a spell or a creature, and then once you get to 10 damage in total, you will lose the game unless something happens like a legendary card pops up like Baru himself, and you can survive another 10 damage before you actually die and lose the game. That being said, the actual combat itself, you have the mana that will happen from the bottom portion of the card. The blue is the actual mana from whatever you'll get when it dies. Then you have the green, which is essentially the health or attack. And once you kill that card by clicking on whatever creatures you have that will be greater than that number, if it's the same or under, you can't attack it, and it will tell you that you can't attack it. And there's different synergies too, like, for example, you'll be able to sacrifice your health to destroy a card on the field. You have different creatures that will power themselves up, giving them from their health to the attack, or being able to make something bigger, sucking up the entire field and destroying it altogether. Maybe even allowing to summon more creatures and being able to damage the opponent in one turn. There's some Guardian or boss fights that I would have that would basically one turn end me because I didn't really have a chance to fight back, and they had the card that was already in their hand that was more powerful than any card I had on the field. So just watch out that sometimes RNG will be a crazy bitch, and that it will obviously happen. There are some weird synergies I don't really understand. There's like 100 plus cards in the game, and like I said, I only picked it up today, January 8th, 2024, for about $10 during a sale that was like 10% off. So what's the verdict for the game if people wanted to buy it for like $10 or $12? Personally, after playing like 2.5 or 3 hours in it, I still want to kind of go back and play some of the different synergies and try out some of the different cards that I haven't really unlocked in the game yet. And it is a single player only game, and not everything is going to be, different. It's going to be a lot of same stuff, a lot of same cards, a lot of same like pathways for the roguelike stuff, and kind of just fighting the same people. So it's not necessarily like, is there a bunch of content? Is it a huge roguelike? Not necessarily. It's a lot of the same stuff, but I played games similar to it, like Aces Adventures, Mythgard, Alina and the Arena, and Maho Kenshi were just a couple of the other games I tried similar to it, to where there wasn't a whole lot of stuff that was in the game. Like, for example, would play a song constantly on loop, or I kept getting the same cards and trinkets over and over. It's similar to that in that type of aspect, to where you're not really unlocking very much stuff in the game. Once it's unlocked, you're done, and then you just move on to something else. That being said, if you're looking for a card game that you want to get everything unlocked, get a bunch of achievements pretty fast, and then just have some fun every once in a while getting on and playing it, I definitely recommend this game for people to try out. Like I said earlier, if you want to try the game out, there is a demo for people to play, and it's a pretty decently sized one. I think it's just the first level, but it teaches you the tutorial and whatever basics of the game that will go over from the tutorial to the main game if you buy it. So you'll have these weird cutscenes too that after you complete a run or you lose, it'll have like Varu or this like weird spider leprechaun thing slash demigod telling you this is what's going on. We're about to take something called the core and some other crap. So before the video ends, I got a couple things I want to say. For example, when it comes down to Primateria and their synopsis, it says, embark on an epic journey in Primateria, a game redefining the roguelike deck builder with a nod to classic Yu-Gi-Oh! Experience. Fuse cards, battle divine beings, and navigate through a universe teeming with challenges and surprises, which, again, is pretty linear when it comes down to the actual world itself and the roguelike elements to it. But I do like the fusing, and I do like the, bigger cards that come out, as well as the synergies like Gravekeeper, that if you have a character or card in the graveyard, you can summon essentially him to the field for free and not have to sacrifice anything because he's a 3-cost card. That being said, I'm One Nut Punch, and this has been another video. There are a couple things I want to say before the end of this actual video, and that is I do have some other stuff going on the way for 2024. A bunch of new videos, mostly early access games. I'm doing Sunken Land. I want to go back and mess around with 1034 for Ground Branch, since they're still messing around with the Kythera AI, and being able to check out some new releases, hopefully coming out soon, like Earthless, Sentry, and Lone Star. I'd say the most recent or closest one that will be coming out is Lone Star, and that's January 18th. Everything else is basically in February, March, and beyond that. So there's really not a whole lot of updates, not a whole lot of like videos to do for them until like later on down the road in 2024. So I'm not really doing much besides going back to like older early access games that had the most recent updates, like Sunken Land's going to be getting weapon attachments and some other things. Then you have, of course, 1034's version for Ground Branch, messing with the Kythera AI and all the modules and everything for the different modifiers there. And then some of the other things for like maybe going back to Elite Dangerous, or maybe even take a look at something brand new. I'm mostly anticipating for Earthless because it's another card game that is incredibly fun, and I've been loving the holy shit out of the demo. But I'll talk about that when that stuff comes out. Anyway, I've been One Nut Punch, and this has been another video. Thanks for watching as per usual, and I'll see y'all later in the next one.